Hi, welcome to Effective Test Taking Strategies, helping our children succeed. My name is Maria Pia Ulrich. I'm the multicultural coordinator here at Successful Innovations. As always, here is my email if you have any questions. I'm going to go ahead and give it a couple more minutes to see if we have other participants logging in. Okay. All right. Once again, my name is Maria Pia Ulrich. Today we're going to be talking about effective testing strategies, helping our children succeed. Here is my email if you have any questions. If you are watching this remotely and something pops up, please, as always, feel free to reach out. Okay. So we're going to take a moment and read this sentence up here. It says, I'm scared. I know I'm going to fail. I don't get any of this. If your child has ever told you this before, if your child tells you this before a test, what would you say in that moment? What would you do as a parent? If I'm being honest, if my son comes and tells me this, first I think I would be very impressed that they are aware that they're thinking about their own thinking and they know that they don't know, that they have taken that moment to say, okay, I am struggling with something. I'm looking at the content and I know that I have not truly understand it, which is a huge win in my opinion. It is a very scary phrase to hear as a parent, but at the same time, there is pros to the fact that they are able to say that they know that they don't know. They're thinking of their own thinking. So what would I do is I would be like, thank you so much for coming and telling me this. It means that we need to work on stuff. Let's see, what do we do from here? So this is why testing strategies, it brings us towards our agenda today of why testing strategies matter, the common challenges that our kiddos, that our students face, the preparation at home, the study strategies, the night before the test, during the test, and after the test. For instance, why the test taking skills matter. When we are taking a test, we're also being graded on our ability to time manage, to focus and pay attention, and on our confidence under pressure. Our test measures those skills as well as the knowledge from that subject. So if we are struggling with time management for a test, it's going to show because we're either going to need more time or we're going to rush through it. And that is very um, obvious with our kiddos. Sometimes there is kids that finish really early because they know all the content. And there's other times that kids finish really early because they are struggling with the content and it is just easy to pick a question. So the goal is for our children to know why are they finishing early? Why are they finishing later? What more time do they need? Also, as well, to focus their attention and have confidence under pressure. So, as they're taking the test, they have to focus on the content itself. If they start thinking about other things, it is quite easy for them to start deviating from the question and start saying, oh, well, I like orange juice. And if the question has orange juice, now I'm thinking about orange juice. And orange juice comes from oranges. If that is not a relevant subject for the test, then it is easy to lose focus and to lose attention on what you're supposed to be doing, as well as the confidence under pressure. Sometimes, if this is a really big test, we get really nervous and we start doubting our ability, or we start second guessing everything, which affects how we do on the test. And many of these things affect our kiddos because they end up having anxiety They lack the strategies, the ability to do well, not because they don't know the subject, but because of all these other things that are attached to the test. The fear of not doing well, the fear of not getting 100%. So, common challenges for students um, is the anxiety of taking the test. Oh no, what score am I going to get? This could affect my grade. This could affect my prospects to the next class. This could affect college. This could affect this. And just that what ifs is very quickly to take over our kiddos' anxiety and thoughts as they're taking the test. And if they have that, they carry out during the test day as well as during their preparation time. They finish too quickly, or they take too long, or they think that this is going to be 2 hours, so they need to rush through it, or they need to take longer, and they struggle with the time itself. Or they're confused. They read the question, they don't understand the question right away, so they just answer it when in reality it had that not in it. So it changed the meaning of the question, or the question had an additional step, or the instructions were not clear enough. They overthink what is going on in the test. Okay, if I do well on this question, then that should give me the answer for the next question. Or maybe I didn't do well in the first questions and now I have to go back and redo it. And they do it 3 or 4 times and they keep getting the same answer, but they know they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So they keep rethinking and keep trying it, which again affects with their ability to take time during the test, and they're overthinking, and that takes over their mindset. And then study habits. I know I have done as an adult, and I know hopefully you haven't done it, but you're like, okay, I have a big test. I'm waiting, I'm waiting, I'm waiting. Okay, the night before, I'm gonna go ahead and study and I'll remember everything. That is not true. That never works out well. And I know I have done that before, at least once for sure. And I know our kiddos go through the same mindset. Okay, I think I got it. I think I'm fine. Okay, then the night before the test, I'm gonna go ahead and cramp and everything will work out. And in reality, that's not the case. The cramping only adds to the anxiety, to the stress, to the ability to manage the time, to the confusion of the content. Because if you didn't know it a week ago and you're about to take a test on it, chances are that you really don't know it the day before, because cramping doesn't really help. So, in order for us to study, we have to do it in increments. 30 minutes one day, the next day another 20 minutes, and then that helps retain the content. But most of our kiddos, when they're like, okay, I'm done with the material, I got it, I'm fine. I think that is the harder skill to truly master as we're getting older, is the ability to study, the ability to take that time and say, okay, I need to either reread the notes, I need to ask questions, I need to reteach it to myself, I need to ask for help. Asking those things become harder as the kiddos get older. So if we're waiting for the last minute to record something, chances are to study something, chances are that we are going to be cramping. And if we're cramming at the last minute, we're not going to be able to do well on the test itself. So the preparation at home, this is key. When we start thinking about a subject that we need to retain is, when does my child review the material at home? Our routine has changed a little bit because we moved. So when my kids come from after school, we go to the local pool to go swimming, and then they come, and then we come back. And then after they have done that, they both have band, so they take out their instrument and they practice their band content. And after their band content, they come back and we looked through their homework and their material. And I had a feeling my oldest one was struggling with math, but I was looking at the grades and they show that he was doing well, that he had A's and B's. So even though I am thinking that as a parent, the grades itself are telling me that he's doing well. I'm talking to him and he's like, yeah, I get confused a little bit, but then he explains again that I'm fine. He took a test and he did not do well on it. So now my question is, when were we reviewing the material for math? And that was an honest question for me as a parent. It made me realize we weren't actually reviewing the content that he was doing at home. I knew I was concerned. I knew that he needed to study, but I was pushing it off. And I was like, okay, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. You're doing well in the class. It's fine, it's fine. Until it's not fine. And I realized, hey, you haven't actually studied. You haven't actually put in the work. I'm not sure of what you're doing in your class. That's a huge concern. What do we do from here? Which makes me go back to how does my child remember the material? Because we haven't actually reviewed the material that he has done in class. And I'm not 100% sure where he was until we saw the results of this test. It made me think, how does he best remember the material? And that is the hardest thing, I think, for us human beings to really take a moment and ask ourselves, how do we remember the material that we learn? What did we do? Did we sing a song? Did we broke it into chunks? Did we practice it? Did we do it? Did we have to do it hands-on? Did we have to ask questions? Did we wrote it in notes? Did we have to hear it? I realized that for me to remember material, I have to hear it a couple times. And that is how I remember it. That's why I love audiobooks and I love podcasts because what do you do in an audiobook and a podcast? You hear it. That's not necessarily the case for my son. So then I have to ask, how do you remember the material? Is it just hearing it? Is it looking at videos? Is it practicing the problems? How is it that you remember the material for you to be able to use it and apply it in different circumstances? That's what we have to go and really work on. Because, spoilers alert, everybody learns different. And that makes it wonderful because we want everybody to have their own system. But it also, as parents, we know that because it's different, we have to really, and as well as teachers, we have to really stop and talk to our kiddos and figure out what works for them. So breaking the study in smaller chunks really helps because it helps break the material itself. So there's a constant repetition and review. Encouraging practice it. How are you going to remember it if you don't do it? At some point, a pilot has to fly the plane. And then consider your daily routines. What is your sleep time, your nutrition? How do you organize yourself and your materials? This is something to think about during your study time, as well as the day before the test. What time do you go to bed? Sleep affects a lot of things. So I was reading the study where it says that sleep has been shown to be the biggest contributor to the height of children. So sleep is the biggest contributor to the growth and height of children. So our brain needs rest. Our children need rest. Also, what are they putting in their body right before? If they're having a very heavy meal, I remember when I was a teenager, I could have a huge cheeseburger and go run 10 miles and be fine. I cannot do that as an adult. But without us knowing it, that takes so much of our body to be able to process. So, what is it that our kiddo is eating before, the night before, and the morning after the test? That makes a huge difference. Now, practice study strategies that we can also do at home is practice the questions, reread the notes. And this is really important because it shows what our kiddos have kept with them, with the notes, and how they have written it in order for them to remember. There's a strategy called teach back teach. And I was actually trying this out with my oldest, where he is at a math level where it is very hard for me to teach him because I haven't done it in a long time. So he is doing eighth grade math, algebra and I haven't done it since a while. So I have to go back and break up the problems, and then we will go through the problems. Then he teaches me how he's doing it. So the more he explains it to me, the better understanding of that I have of where his misconception might be at. Use diagrams, charts, flashcards. Something that I would also say is something that I will also say is that if you are struggling with understanding the components, Google it. See how Google breaks it down for you, what understandings it has. And space out studying over time and small increments because that makes a difference on how our kiddos are remembering chunks because small increments build up the huge part of remembrance. So the night before the test is I will strongly recommend to prepare a checklist of all the materials and things that you need the next day. What materials does my child need in order to be successful? Do they need to do a live review just so that way they can remember a few concepts? Maintain a positive attitude and environment, most of all, calmness. If we are stressed out about the test, we pass that anxiety to our kiddos. And what we're trying to avoid is for them to have anxiety during the test because anxiety takes away from their ability to think clearly. And they need to have a good night's sleep and a nutritious meal. And I'm sure we hear that all the time, but it does make a difference. During the test, there is so many strategies that we can use. But the biggest one is read directions carefully. Take a moment, read the directions, and make sure that you understand. Underline and highlight keywords. What is the question truly asking? If it's a multiple choice, a strategy that usually works is cover the four answers or don't look at them quite yet, and then ask yourself, what would be the answer? And then uncover the multiple choice. If the answer that you have matches the other four, great. Matches one of the other four, great. Then you can just go ahead and choose that one. But if they don't, then you have the opportunity to start crossing out the ones that don't make sense. Start with the easier questions. Something that I would also say is if the test allows you to skip the hard ones, do it and then go back to them. But if allows you to only skip three, because there's some tests that allows you to skip three questions, but they doesn't let you go back, then don't do the answer to them as much as you can. Check your answers if time's allowed. Manage your time. Look at the whole test if you're able to. Some tests allow you to look at it completely. Now they don't. If you're taking a computer test, if you go to the next question, you can't go back. Then obviously the strategy is not the best to use at that moment. And then allocate time per section. Remember to review. If there is remainder time, remember to review your answers. Manage your anxiety during the test. Take deep breath. Talk to yourself positively. Take short mental breaks. If you know this is going to be a 3-hour test, take a couple minutes. If you know your test is going to be during the period and it's 90 minutes, how are you taking your small mental break? Sometimes just closing your eyes for 20 seconds, looking to the side for another 20 seconds, and then going back to the computer. It is enough of a break to rewire your brain to be like, okay, I can keep doing this if you're taking a computer test. After the test, make sure to ask positive questions as parents. This is really hard because the first instinct you want to ask is, what do you do during the test? What do you get? Instead of asking those questions, is how did it go? What do you think about the test? What went well? If you would have done something differently, how would you have done it? What worked? And then reflect together. What worked? What can we improve next time? And focus on the growth itself. I know that we want our kids to do well, but the fact that they are growing and learning the content, it shows that just growth. And that's why we want them. We want them to keep growing. We want them to keep learning. Something to avoid after the test is the pressure of, okay, you should have done this in the test. You should have done this in the test. Compare our kiddo to somebody else. Well, so and so did this, or your brother did this, or your sister did this. Then that starts having a negative resonation between the relationships between the other person. Overloading our kiddos and focusing on the grade by itself. Yes, grades are indicators of how they're doing, but they are not the only indicator, or they're not the only thing that matters. It matters if their kiddos are learning and doing well and progressing. So we have to remember those things. Um, Here's the references. I hope that our session today on how to use effective teaching strategies help you later on. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me via email. I have a 48-hour turnaround. Thank you so much for joining us today.